the economy will continue to shed jobs. This is according to strategic management and governance analysts who believe there's a lack of political will to address youth unemployment in the country. SABC News reporter Ofentse Setimo and videographer Thabo Mtshweni are tracking this story for us.
There are 10.2 million people between the ages of 15 and 24 years in South Africa, and of those, 36.1 are not in employment or even training, leaving the youth of South Africa with very low prospects of a future employment. I am joined now by Dr. Kaiser Makole, who is an expert on these matters, to actually elaborate a bit further. Dr. Kaiser, thank you so much for your time. How can government intervene to address the issue of youth unemployment in the country?
Thank you, Mr. Setimo. It's a pleasure to talk to you about this challenge of youth unemployment, especially on this important day of June 16. My approach is that government now must start to rethink their macroeconomic policy, because this policy has been applied since 1994, and then it used to work well during the era of Thabo, where there was 5% GDP growth. But the challenge with it, even though there were 5% GDP growth, it was not able to create jobs, because there was a term that is called trickle-down effect, where we allow the market forces to take control and hope. So we cannot live in hope. Young people are unemployed. What we need is that government must start to rethink the way they do things and involve young people. Maybe they need to pursue a new alternative about the economic development. For example, you come with issues like providing basic income grant for all young people, but also you train them and set aside some of the money of basic income grant so that they can form their own cooperatives. But another issue that is a problem also in South Africa is the learnerships. We are giving many young people learnerships, but after 2 years, 3 years, these young people are unemployed again. Why can't we take this money for learnership, put it in one pot, and create funding for young people, train them on their skills, identify different localities in the township, and say, we look at where they are competent in. For example, others they can do farming, others they can do their own small manufacturing, others they can produce whatever the services that the government needs, and also supply government in terms of procurement, which means that you also have to do away with tendering, but you empower young people. I think those are some of the ideas. But at the same time also, we need young people who will behave like young people of June 1976, who take control of their destiny. You see, the issue is that many young people in South Africa, they have outsourced their freedom, especially freedom of life, to political party, and they become partisan, instead of saying, how can we as young people, like the youth of 1976, work together and start to demand what they believe that there is due for by government. So young people must even create what I call social compact amongst themselves. 6 million young people unemployed, work together and start to hold government accountable and say, we demand this and this and this and this thing. That will improve our life. Because for me, I believe that if you change the macroeconomic trajectory in South Africa, there are many opportunities to create jobs. You need to look at countries like Denmark, Sweden, even Germany, that are not capitalist countries but social democratic countries, and they've managed to create jobs amongst young people for themselves. You cannot stick with one economic policy that doesn't work, and it has proven that it's in crisis and it has failed.
Yes, and considering the quarterly labor force survey that was recently released by the Stats SA, painting a picture of youth unemployment, do you believe that the youth are actually in their right minds? They can actually celebrate Youth Day?
I think it will be unfair for us to say young people must celebrate. What should they celebrate? Because almost 7 million of them are unemployed. So I think they need to take stock, start to strategize and say, how can they start to lead themselves, but demand from government? Because, the young people have signed a social compact with government. Government, they pay tax like any person. Their parents pay tax. So government need to recapitalize some of the money in the taxes and treat unemployment like they've treated COVID as a national tragedy. Because it's true, unemployment is going to create instability in South Africa. Maybe in 3 years' time, like we've seen in July 2021, there will be serious social unrest as long as the number of young people increase. And all these quarterly labor surveys every year, they show us that unemployment will increase. Sometimes it becomes an exception if it goes down or it stabilizes. So young people have to come out with ideas. I know that I've worked with many young people. They are creative thinkers. What they need is money to be funded, because we know that our financial institutions do not fund young people. And another problem in South Africa you see, in the past, the economy was driven towards manufacturing for productivity, for job creation. But now we have entered in what I term shareholding economy, where many investors, they just buy shares, they don't create jobs. So young people have to think on the ground where they are, build partnership, think and say, how do we start our own businesses? But government must become our partner in terms of supporting us, using institutions like Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, small business development and all these things. But another important thing, you need to deal with corruption, because even if money comes, if you don't address corruption, what are the strategies that you ensure that if there is corruption for the money that can assist young people to start their business, you have to deal with that harshly, so that you can send the message even to politicians that they cannot use the money that is intended to deal with a national disaster for corrupt purposes.
And the political elite, most of them are elderly people, So do you believe that in their minds, they have the political will to try and address the situation that's actually facing the youth currently?
I really don't think they have. And to be honest, it's common sense. Even though they might wish, but their heart are not there. Because some of them, as you are saying, they are old people. 20 years, 30 years, they will never be there. That's why I'm saying, let's look at what a youth of 1976 did. Their parents, they were scared of the South African National Defence Force. Most of the liberation movement, they were moribund. They were in exile. They were disorganized after the arrest of Nelson Mandela and other leaders of the Rivonia tribe. But young people did not seek agency in any political party. They started to organize themselves organically from the ground and started to come with this movement that challenges Africans as a medium of instruction. So even young people now, they must use things. They have tools like Twitter. How do you use Twitter for? Are you using it as an instrument, a social mechanism for development, or are you using it as an instrument for distraction where you criticize each other, so that you can mobilize, start to share ideas, start to look for opportunities and guide each other? So young people need to take leadership. They cannot outsource their liberation on old people, because old people are no longer energized. Young people, they have energy. If they think about something, they don't sleep, they plan it, it happens. Whereas old people, they will just think that it will happen. But for me, I think the level of energy is different. Young people, they are more energetic, whereas old people, they are no longer that much energized.
Thank you very much. Well, as you heard, that's Dr. Kaiser actually saying that the South African government need to reconsider their macroeconomic policies in order to create jobs for the youth who are actually at the moment definitely not being prioritized in terms of making sure that they are actually employed. And with that, is back to studio.